The Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil, Heineken Lukobiri, has met with critical stakeholders in the sector to resolve the ongoing issues surrounding the Dangote refinery. The meeting, which was held at the Minister's office, focused on finding a sustainable and lasting solution to the current impasse affecting the Dangote refinery, with all parties demonstrating a commitment to collaborative and proactive problem solving. The Minister emphasized the importance of cooperation and synergy among all stakeholders to ensure the success and optimal performance of the oil and gas sector, which is pivotal for Nigeria's economic growth and energy security. Among those present at the meeting included Aliko Dangote, Chairman and CEO of Dangote Group, Chief Executive of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Benga Komolafe, and the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, Mele Kyari. All right, Adefemi, so they've gone to the table. I spoke about this yesterday, actually. He talked about the importance of take this off the media, take this off air, find a solution, come together and discuss. And this is what happened, chaired by the Minister of Petroleum Resources, Oil.
Well, firstly, to be honest, I like it when things are in the media. As a field reporter, I like to hear what's going on so then we can keep abreast of the issue. So I definitely understand what you're saying when it comes to people having an issue, because I do think theoretically when a problem has grown to this extent, essentially, there is nothing that can't be solved without a conversation. Mm-hmm. So conversations have the prospect to solve issues, and you're going to need all of the parties at the table. So with the coming of this meeting, it is definitely helpful and useful that these people are definitely coming in. Oh, I see.
All right, so let me just, I'll come to you very shortly. Rufai, yesterday we had a conversation around this and you spoke about the importance of taking this off the media, contrary to what Adefemi's thoughts are, but in terms of preference. But what do you think about this?
So the truth is, my fear is, and when I said they should take it off the media, Adefemi, just like you two, I love all the juice in the media anyway, but as a matter like this, that has to do with the future of investment in this country, where you have a country that's been blacklisted already. I mean, the chairman of Total in Rwanda largely said that Nigeria was not ready to do business, that the regulators were the problems. And it's not a good business climate. And we're not doing anything there. And we see just how immediately Total had gone to do investments in other countries like Angola. So when you start to see this going on with an independent refiner of Nigerian origin that you expect the government has to support, then it's not a good optic. Yeah. So that's why I was saying they should take it off and cool heads prevail. But also in the meeting, a lot of things were said. Part of the things I still want them to investigate was the fact that some of this NNPC people, or probably this also marketers and people in the ecosystem, have blending plants in Malta. So if you have a blending plant in Malta, why don't you bring it in situ? To be able to provide jobs and all of that. Because the other marketers that have blending plants here, that have lubricant plants and things like that, they are providing jobs in this ecosystem. You cannot create a job in Malta, and because you have a preference on the cost, and you expect people here to suffer. And they talk about monopoly. See, truth has to be said, and I was saying about the railroads in America yesterday. Yeah. The likes of the Vanderbilts of this world, Cornelius, they had scale. What Dangote had just brought about is the capacity of scale. He's a man that thinks of go big or go home. He didn't want to have to compete with modular refineries. That's why he did 650,000 single train refinery barrel per day. He knew what he was doing. The question when you can only talk about monopolies, do you have other people that have 650,000 barrel per day refinery and they're not buying from them? How many people do you have? Even all the government refinery, about 4 of them put together, probably is about 445,000 barrels. So when you talk monopoly, he has capacity, he has scale. You cannot deny that scale, just like the scale Standard Oil had back in the days. What will be the way forward would also be Dangote Group sitting in the room, and I hope the Dangote Group is listening to this, sitting in the room, Alhaji Aliko Dangote and your people, I'm speaking to you this morning, sit in the room with the marketers. They are scared, they are disgruntled. They are unsure. They want reassurances. They've been known to make XYZ amount of money from this. And they think when you come in as a behemoth in the room, probably that margins will be cut. You need to reassure them. You need to put a deal on the table for them. It's a win-win for everybody. Also with the regulators, go out there, sit with them. Have a conversation with these guys.
All right.
We might not want to say it on TV. Some of the regulators still make cuts here and there as regards importation. So those little largesse, those little largesse, they don't want to miss that money. They are human beings too, just like us. So sit with them and reassure them. Because you see, in the end, we don't want anybody to lose, and Nigeria will be the greatest loser.
Right. All right.
Let cool heads prevail.
Fine. I think, again, this is all about theory and practice. We can all say that everybody should come to the table. I think everyone needs to lead with a certain modicum of honesty. If we're here talking about, okay, well, different interests need to be met, deals need to be done, that's fine. But I think that these conversations should be held openly and honestly. If marketers, certain ICOs are used to receiving a certain amount every month, then I can understand where this negativity is coming from. At the same time, I don't think that justifies the level of... It was very catty and nasty. So, for example, comments about the quality of the product not being up to standard. Whether or not that's true, I do think that goes away in damaging trust and mutual understanding between both parties. I can understand the Dangote side of the argument, saying, well, how can I come and reassure you or have any type of relationship with you if you're already nastily and intentionally downgrading my product? So I think there's that. And then to that extent, there's also this admission now that this testing facility has been accepted by the government. So I think there is some sort of progress. But I do think that everybody needs to understand what the crux of this issue is. NNPC and their ability to supply oil in the first place, I think that is the bottom line. Do they even have the capability to finance or to supply what Dangote refinery needs? So I do think that, yes, we can discuss about meeting everybody where they are, but I just think that this is also a situation where there is a lot of malice on top of the table that needs to be addressed first and foremost. So, I mean, this is a closed-door meeting. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it, whether or not they will talk to the press and let us understand what is happening. But I do think there is a greater understanding of the need. There's a greater understanding to understand how oil and gas in this country works. I do think from the outside looking in, it's quite murky, it's quite difficult to understand. You would imagine, or you think that in a country that struggles to refine its own oil products, that they would welcome with open arms the prospect of a new refinery. But clearly, this has ruffled a lot of feathers, and you've mentioned what those interests are. But I do think at some extent, there has to be some mutual understanding and a lot of honesty on the table if you're expecting people to successfully negotiate.
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, it is obviously showing the level of, shall I say, rot or corruption or cabalism of the oil industry, oil and gas industry. And this has been talked about previously or prior to this, to what's come out by Alhaji Aliko Dangote himself, talking about the challenges he's had to face. A number of people wouldn't have imagined that those challenges were posed by, largely or significantly by state-run regulatory organizations like NUPRC or NMDPRA. So it was quite surprising for a lot of people to hear. But I think he went ahead. He kind of understood what was coming and was able to, really come out and speak out before all these things started unfolding. Like you said, I'm glad that they had a sit-down, conversation yesterday. If you look at the pictures, it was very relaxed. It wasn't even on a kind of table like this. It was almost, except they moved to a more formal sitting. But the front they presented was, okay, we're now trying to negotiate, we're trying to talk to one another, everyone down your arms and let us have a conversation. And for a number of people, it is like you said, why did we have to get to this point before we started having a conversation? I'm sure that there were conversations that happened behind the scenes before Mr. Farouk Ahmed came out to make the statements that he made, which, by the way, Dangote refinery and Alhaji Dangote himself have been able to challenge, especially by inviting people to come, and they tested publicly their oil, and we actually saw that their ppm with regards to sulfur content was very low compared to their competitors. So why did he have to get to this point? Whose interest is being gored? Who is it whose feathers are being ruffled and why? Especially because the interests of one man or a group of people cannot be higher than the interests of the nation. It cannot. If we have something that's beneficial, potentially beneficial for Nigeria and Nigerians, and a group of people whose income or interests are going to be affected, then rise up to kick against it, then we as a people must also rise up to kick against that, because so how long must we continue with this? It happens not just in the oil industry. We saw that in the aviation industry play out. We see it in other industries that perhaps are not even coming out to speak. Like I said yesterday, this is beyond the Dangote refinery. If we continue to permit or enable situations like this, whereby a regulatory agency, the head of a regulatory agency in Nigeria would speak against an indigenous organization, even if there were issues around, this is something that could have been had, conversations that could have been had behind the scenes without him coming to demarket the Dangote refinery. He's not just selling to the Nigerian market. He has international customers. He has international people who patronize him internationally. How do you begin to take back your word or begin to clean up the damage that's already been caused in terms of trust, a lack of trust? These are the things we're speaking about. But at the end of the day, what we want is a resolution. Glad that they finally come to the table. Hopefully, they'll take this off the media as much as possible. If anything, let them come and speak up for Nigerian-owned businesses, not come to the market what a man has built, through his sweat and blood and money invested. But we'll move on to our next story this morning. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has declined to nullify the primary election that produced Asue Ighodalo as candidate of the People's Democratic Party for the governorship election in Edo State, slated for September. The appellate court, in a unanimous decision by a three-man panel of justice, dismissed an appeal that was filed by the recently reinstated Deputy Governor of the state, Philip Shaibu, who was earlier impeached in office. The court said it found no reason to set aside the May 27 judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which refused to invalidate the governorship primary election the PDP conducted in Edo State based on the suit by the appellant. It went ahead and awarded a cost of 1 million naira against Shaibu. All right, so Edo State's still in the news, and I don't think they're going to be out of the news anytime soon. But this time it's an update. I recall that he had approached the reinstated deputy governor, because there's so many concerns around the nomenclature of that.
With one party,
but he had approached the Federal High Court, Honored Justice Omotosho, to seek that the PDP primaries be annulled based on a number of things. Your take on this story now at the appeal court?
Okay, well, as you've said now, we've got this little bit of an update, but I don't think it, again, addresses the bigger issues on ground. Again, from someone from the outside looking in, there doesn't seem to be a lot of, I won't call it rot, but just clearly a lot of disconnection between the sitting governor, this now reinstated governor who now is pledging well, not even now, but who is now with a separate party. So it does seem as though there's a lot of messiness happening in Edo State. And looking at Obaseki's comments, he's been calling for a free and fair election when they do come to their state election. I think it will be in September, this coming September. And I do imagine that many people, in the interest of democracy, in the interest of the people of Edo State, will join him in asking for a free, fair, but also a safe election process. I'm saying that because this is happening off the back of protests, police officer losing a life last week, and then lots of issues as it pertains to Shaibu and whether or not he's able to, I guess, assume his duties or not. I think during your interview last week, he did discuss how, well, despite everything that's happening, he will be resuming to work, that he does have duties to do, but he's unable to get in type of contact with his superior, the governor, and he's also not on good terms with the National Assembly in Edo State. So I can't imagine that this is the most fruitful form of governance happening in Edo State, but it will be interesting to see what the elections look like. Yeah.
Two things I always tell people: never trust politicians. They're only as good as when their interests align. Shaibu and Obaseki fighting today used to be best buddies. The same Oshomole that Shaibu went to prostrate for 2 days ago was the same person he was fighting a couple of months ago. All of this is for power. So Shaibu, because he couldn't get his way with the PDP, he's trying to disrupt the candidature of Asue Ighodalo. They had a quick fist in the door when the court ruled in their favor the first time that, as regards, the delegates, they were not real delegates and all of that, and that caused a lot of kerfuffle. But Asue Ighodalo has triumphed over that. Now they've even gone to the court, the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal still insists. In fact, even fined Triangle 1 million by saying that you didn't even participate in the election, so you have no locus in the first place because you had a parallel primary as against the one that was held collectively, where you declared yourself the winner and all of that. And you have not exhausted all the party mechanisms internally. But Shaibu obviously has left, has moved on, to the APC. He's with Monday Okpebolo, trying as much as possible to fight against it. So it's a squabble for power. Yeah. But one thing I will not also condone, that I'm seeing videos making the rounds that Baseki said, was that the country is going to burn. Nowhere is going to burn. It's all for your interest. You have your own candidate in this election. If he doesn't win, you go to the courts. If the court doesn't really your favor, you move on because you win some and you lose some. All of this is for the interest, their interest in the end. It's never about you and me. And sometimes, I'm going to use this very hard word, the people are too deluded to see through their, pardon my French, BS in the end. They keep supporting these politicians at their own expense. All of these guys and these things, they are billionaires, they are richer. An average Edo citizen can't get a job to do.
Yeah. Well, you did ask the question yesterday when we had Liberos Oshoma, where you asked him, what is in it for the Edo people? And when should they begin to speak up? I think very importantly, what the judgment from the appeal court, unanimous by the way, is that now the PDP candidate, Aso Ighodalo, could hopefully continue with his campaign without a lot of distractions from the reinstated Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu, who has said that the court should set aside the PDP primaries, even though he was not participating in it, even though he had a factional primary held in his residence at the time. So he had, according to the first ruling in the Federal High Court, he had no local standing to even bring the matter before the court because he was not a part of that process. But to now see that, so what we're saying is that, okay, at least at this point, Mr. Aso Ighodalo has been cleared to run. Right. He is, at the moment, the substantive candidate of the PDP in that election. I'm hoping that peace will reign, and at the end of the day, the interests of the Edo people themselves, who are the ones who will make the decision finally as to who will govern them in the next cycle, will be paramount. And very importantly, listen to the issues. But I need to very quickly just mention something before we go. Earlier on, when I talked about the NUPRC for the meeting, I mentioned them because they were part of that meeting. Right. But we know that it's the NMDPRA who are the ones who are involved in this matter with the Dangote, because they are the regulators for the Dangote refinery. It has nothing to do with the NUPRC. They were just present at that meeting. I believe the minister was trying to bring together all the stakeholders, yes, without, so that was just to clarify that.